Hello, and welcome to the Chief Technology Officer panel at T3 Enterprise Virtual Conference. My name is Oleg Tishkevich, and I'm the CEO of the company called Invent. We provide cloud-native digital ecosystem as a service for financial institutions, as well as tech vendors in wealth management industry. I'm joined today by three distinguished gentlemen who serve as Chief Technology Officers for large financial services companies. I will start by introducing my first panelist, Ed Obuchowski.
Hi, Oleg. It's great to see you.
Nice.
Again, my name is Ed Obuchowski. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Advisor Group. It's a large firm which services over 10,000 financial professionals and with over 1,500 employees.
Thank you, Ed. And that I know that you're relatively new in your role at Advisor Group, that prior to Advisor Group, you worked at Charles Schwab for many years, serving as a technology management and many technology management roles, probably all of them that Schwab's got, starting with Senior Vice President of Investor Services Technology, where you're responsible for software engineering and global market and active trader and bank technology, and then moving on to be a Vice President of technology infrastructure, right, in charge of data and operations, and finally taking the role of SVP of Advisor Services Technology Solutions, managing all that suite of technology platforms, right?
And of course, that's where we first met. So, that of course was probably the most important job. But no, all kidding aside, I was there for about 20 years, and like one would expect, your job does change rather on a rather normal basis. And so like you said, I can go down the list of the 11 jobs I had over the course of that time, and it absolutely did range from everything from front end as well as back end software development, infrastructure, and then as you mentioned, it kind of culminated in the advisor technology solutions role before heading over to Advisor Group. And although it feels like it's only been a little while, it's actually nearly been 3 years since I left. So the important thing is we're still having fun and making a great deal of progress, and hopefully keeping our advisors and financial professionals happy.
Great. Thank you, Ed. And our second panelist is Nick Graham. Nick is the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer and member of Executive Council at Cambridge Investment Research, the broker-dealer. Nick, thank you for joining us as well. Nick has joined Cambridge in 2017, bringing with him over 25 years of experience in product, business development, and variety of markets, including financial services. And in his current role, Nick leads one of the most innovative personal financial workstations in the industry, featuring financial professionals' friendly technology that is customizable in the broadest range of independent business models across financial professional business channels. And prior to Cambridge, Nick had an extensive experience leading operations and building development teams at companies like AT&T, Comprehensive Software Systems, and Broadridge. So Nick, I also wanted to congratulate you on the appointment to the inaugural Financial Services Institute Advocacy Circle of Excellence, which is the FSI members who display outstanding commitment to advocacy on behalf of the independent financial advisors industry. So that's a pretty big appointment. So
my spare time I love to argue with
congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. And our last but not least member of the panel is Dev Ganguly. And Dev is a Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Jackson, which is a North American business unit of Prudential PLC. In Dev's current role, his responsibility is to oversee all of the areas of technology, including software delivery, infrastructure engineering, IT service management, enterprise architecture, and digital transformation. And prior to that, Dev was working also at Jackson as a Vice President and Senior Innovation Group at Jackson, Systems Innovation Group, and then also served as a Chief Information Officer at Curian Capital at the same time. So that was kind of a double role, right, Dev, that you had, responsible for crafting technology and aligning with corporate strategy. And also, Dev, it's your 20 years today, this year, right, with Jackson. So congratulations on that. That's pretty impressive. And actually, Dev, is that right? You started as a software developer over there at Jackson?
I did. I started on the technical side, then I realized I liked leadership more than programming. Though I still dabble a little still, but the newer languages I say are far too easy than when we used to have to code in C++ and some of the more lower level languages. So thank you, Oleg, for having me on the panel. Really excited for this conversation. And just as a point of reference, Jackson used to own a broker-dealer network called National Planning Holdings. I used to head up technology for that group as well. So I'm very familiar with Nick and Ed's world as well from that standpoint.
That's great. And Dev, probably when you started as a developer, maybe your first name have to do something with going up the ranks so quickly?
I should have patented my first name. That's true.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So we'll get started. I guess my first question to the panel is, you know, it's been a pretty crazy year so far, to say the least. And with all the turbulence and unpredictability that all of us experienced this year, I wanted to ask to see if you can tell us a little bit about what were the most important decisions you've made in technology this year, and how does it change your strategy for the next year? And we'll go ahead and start with Nick, since we have him on the screen right now. Nick, please go ahead.
Yeah, the 2020 initiatives that Amy Weber, our president, kicked off for us predominantly focused on digitization. We had made a lot of technology investments in the years prior in point areas, but she wanted an integrated solution across the whole experience for the advisor, the types of solutions that were available to the end client, and also the efficiencies internal to the company related to physical processing and manual activity. So we kicked off a big business engineering activity that had a variety of different technologies that were rolled out that are going live in the next couple weeks, dealing dominantly with our direct business on all of our paper processing with Highland. A lot of our interdepartmental activities were, moved over to adopting a Salesforce workflow engine type solution. That was an interesting challenge to get them to slow down on the CRM story, and I really only wanted their workflow engine capabilities, so I had to put them in the box in terms of what I wanted that technology for. And then we did a lot with all of our partners of the types of attestations and approvals and signature activities that needed to move to a digital fashion. And we were very successful in going well over the 3/4 mark in terms of that converted into a digital fashion for improvement in detail of data and activity of process management.
That's great, Nick. Thank you. Thank you so much. And it sounds like you really had your kind of agenda filled this year quite a bit, despite all the things going on besides the planned activities, right? With going remote and other operational things that had to take place mid-year, right?
They did distract us a little bit. We went early in the process with COVID's impact to go to a work rotational model. That's worked well for us. Luckily, we had made investments in our infrastructure for other reasons in the years prior, but we capitalized on those quickly, move almost 1,000 people home in about a week and a half. Not our normal business operational model, but we pulled it off, and now we operate in a rotational model right now that is working quite well for the company to kind of keep service levels where they need to be and still allow for us to protect our associates, which we put first and foremost in the minds of what we try to do as management for the company. It's been a very distracting, year, I guess. All of us have enjoyed the challenges of trying to figure out how to do that right and do it well. But we've been both mix in what we were responsible for on technology rollout while we supported the business. So I look at it as a success, and happy with the outcome that sets us up for a lot of interesting initiatives like the ones that we're doing with Invent in 2021.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Nick. Dev, if we could go to you next, if you could tell us a little bit about your firm. And I understand Jackson is one of the largest producers of annuity in the country, right? So with this much of a responsibility, what were some of the most important technology decisions for you this year?
Absolutely. And first of all, just like Nick, I would say investments last year helped significantly with the COVID changes. I think we were able to move thousands of employees seamlessly to work from home, leveraging Teams, Zoom, some of the collaboration technologies last year, which we had made sure was at least rolled out. So I think this is a year where technologists like us actually got to shine a little bit and show the value of that infrastructure. Well, start off with that. I think that applies to everyone on this panel. As for major initiatives, I think one initiative which we had started a couple of years ago was to achieve business agility by moving to a more product-driven approach than a project-driven approach in technology. And obviously, we leveraged Agile, but we also scaled Agile, where using a mechanism called SAFe, now we have 30 plus Agile teams all working based on customer journeys and roadmaps and things like that, which did not used to be the case. Earlier, used to have IT technology projects and they were point solutions. So I would say this year was a major maturation of that, where you have product owners from distribution, from service, from finance, truly driving the vision versus IT driving the vision on technology investments. So that was a big thing for us. Also this year, we started pushing aggressively on our data initiatives. We firmly believe as an organization, after our associates, data is our biggest asset. But as most of us know, we all have legacy systems, and data sometimes is trapped into those legacy systems. So we started on a big initiative to liberate our data, create an enterprise data lake, which is cloud native on Azure. And we are putting significant efforts on that because we believe that data can actually make a huge change, not just within the organization, but also as we interact with our distribution partners or as we interact with our ecosystem partners. It's critical for us to have a very good data strategy. So that was the second big thing which we pushed on. And the third area where we are pushing on is more cloud native development. Again, to achieve that business agility, we are doing a lot of investments going cloud native on our development stack. So those would be the three technology initiatives, big technology initiatives, which we are focused on this year.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds like really exciting stuff, very, very technology oriented, as well as kind of the process oriented on both sides. You were able to excel kind of in both areas, and certainly cloud native is the way to go. So very, congratulations on that. So that's pretty exciting. Thank you. And Ed, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's going on at Advisor Group this year, and what are the plans for next year?
Well, first of all, one of the things I just realized here is that we all must be living in the same world. Literally, these are very, very similar investments. I would say, Oleg, like the others have said, we were very, very fortunate to make some pretty substantial investments in our infrastructure prior to the COVID outbreak, which allowed us literally, in a flick of a switch to go 100% remote, which was absolutely critical. And, I think, as you said, technology had a chance to shine. I think they also had a chance to really let the company down. And we saw that with some companies, but fortunately with Advisor Group, we didn't skip a beat. And so I couldn't be more proud of the team. Like Deb said, as well as Nick, we made substantial investments in our digital platform. So ours is called Equipped, and it's a platform that's used by advisors, by back office personnel, financial professionals, as well as the end clients through a portal. Like Dev, the investments were not only specific to digital technologies with straight through processing, but a lot of it had to do with process, with Agile. So we too moved from what I would say was primarily a kind of a typical RUP or waterfall model, into a much more modern and agile approach. And just like every firm, everyone does it a little bit differently to make sure it meets the unique needs of that culture. And I think that process sort of played out very, very well for us just over the last year. And then the last thing I'll say, which I think is absolutely critical, is, and this is probably where it's a little bit unique to Advisor Group, is, Advisor Group was a part of AIG for years, and only separated from AIG about 4 years ago. And as a result of that separation, obviously, things need to be completely, rebuilt in many different areas. And so one of the key investments that we've made over the last year or 2 years has been people, like finding really top-notch people, people with incredible levels of experience in software development, in quality assurance, in cyber security, in infrastructure, in workplace technology, et cetera. And I'll give you just a quick example is that one of the areas where, we sort of turned, lemons into lemonade is in the cybersecurity space. And as you guys know, one of the areas that the regulators are very interested in is what are companies like ours doing to protect or help protect the financial professionals and their firms and of course their clients' data. And so we started up a program called CyberGuard, in which case we engaged directly with all of our financial professionals and rolled out technology, rolled out capabilities to ensure that they were given sort of a specific score of how compliant they are with a set of standards, and then actually helping them resolve or remediate issues if they do arrive. And as a result, we've got a tremendous level of again compliance with those standards, as well as controls to make sure that people continue to adhere to them.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of things have happened, and I know Advisor Group is a rapidly growing company through natural growth and acquisitions. So I'm sure you had a lot of things this year on your plate besides the planned activities. And sounds like everybody has been very much ready to go into remote mode. Our company actually started remote completely from day one, so we didn't have to adjust at all. But it was great to see that many firms in our industry have been ready for this crazy thing that happened this year with COVID. So speaking of this new environment, and kind of from a back office perspective, you talked a little bit about security and how that cybersecurity is really important, making sure that your data and your systems are protected. And as we go into a new year and, there are probably potential significant changes from a process perspective, regulation changes that might be coming down the line. What are the patterns that you see in, or you see adapting in the future around getting internal systems as well as external systems adjusting to this new environment? So it's obviously security concerns as well as any sort of adjustments to their capabilities technology-wise because of the, probably some changes that are coming down the pipeline with any kind of regulation updates that probably most likely going to be coming this year.
I think that's a great question. The way that I would think about it is, and maybe what I'll do is I'll borrow an old saying from my old boss from many years ago, who once told me, if you're in charge of infrastructure, make sure you spend every dollar you have and every dollar you don't have on cybersecurity. And this was years ago, and he was absolutely right on. I mean, right now, think about it. We live in a world where not only is there pressure from the regulators, which you would expect, but you've got domestic threats, you've got international threats. I mean, it's happened to all of us. Where there have been attacks that we've had to fend off. However, what I would say is that I think the fundamentals stay the same, which is you don't necessarily have to be, there's what's the old saying, you don't have to be the fastest, right? But you certainly don't want to be the slowest. And so I do think that as leaders in technology, we've got to continue to make consistent investments in every aspect of our cybersecurity capabilities. It certainly gets to be a little bit more tricky when you're in a sort of B2B model, that we're in. But you could say that basically when I think about our cybersecurity, I think, again, going back to the fundamentals, the internal fundamentals have got to be there, right? I mean, your compliance or adherence to things like NIST standards, making sure that obviously that your perimeter is as strong as humanly possible, making sure again, going back to the people aspect, making sure that you have people who have the experience and can build the capabilities, the automation that you absolutely need to determine if there are threats, how to handle those threats, how to quarantine them, stuff like that. But I still think those are very fundamental. I think it was Dev who mentioned big kind of the complex the information around analytics. Analytics obviously has 10,000 different use cases that are out there, and one of them is detecting fraud, detecting anomalies. When let's just say a supposed client is interacting with your website, but perhaps doing something nefarious, you can detect those things, right, based upon patterns. But I would also say, just going back to the cyber side of things, and I mentioned it with our program CyberGuard, is you have to create very much a comprehensive ecosystem of capabilities that not only allows a firm to be able to protect itself, but also again empowers our clients and their ability to keep their firms as safe as humanly possible, but also doing so in a scalable manner. I mean, to your point, Oleg, when I joined, we had whatever it was, 7,000 financial professionals. We're over 11 now. So so how do you build out these programs in a scalable way without creating large amounts of cost problems? And then the last little piece that I'll just mention is, and I know this kind of goes without saying, but very important, is on the access, the internal side of things, making sure that you're protecting yourself from a potential bad actor internally. That's the one thing that we never, all of us think about it, but we hate to think about it because we all trust the people that we work with. But providing those multiple levels or layers of protection and oversight is paramount.
That's great. Great insight. This is definitely security, and cybersecurity is an extremely important topic. It's one of the top concerns, not just in our industry, but pretty much any industry these days, and especially everybody going remote. So thank you for that insightful overview for what your firm is doing in that area. I wanted to turn to Dev and kind of ask maybe a slightly different question to see if with the changes that are happening in Dev, in your business, and dealing with internal systems. I know you guys have done a lot of work refactoring it, going cloud native. So how do you see your company adjusting and be able to kind of adopt to change going forward? And how do you see that sort of working with the vendors and other systems that you're working with on the peripheral, if you will?
Great question, Oleg. So we have a philosophy of moving towards platforms broadly. And platforms means different things for different people. But we have taken an approach where if there is a best of breed platform available, as an example, Salesforce for engagement, or Workday for HR, or Oracle for finance, we are heavily moving to a best of breed platform because we truly believe that the engineering that's happening at these firms, which are technology heavy firms, is generally going to be exemplary. Yes, we might be able to match it, but it's going to require a lot of work. So instead of focusing on building these platforms, which we used to before, we have moved to a world of strong partnerships, especially around SaaS platforms. And where we are creating our secret sauce is our integration, is our APIs. And I think most of us here are familiar with APIs, but for those of you who might be listening, API is the digital interaction mechanism between different firms. So we are creating an API layer and a data layer for us to interact with other distribution partners, whether it's someone like an advisor group or an LPL or a Raymond James or a Morgan Stanley, or with a platform provider like Envestnet, or with data aggregators, we are creating this API and the data layers to have that stitching fabric. Even internally, we are now focused on creating that experience for our advisors and consumers using all of these platforms versus continuing to build this core Lego blocks. So in our world, we are heavily moving towards a world where our secret sauce is going to be the stitching fabric, both for our internal associates, for our consumers, our advisors, as well as for our distribution partners, ecosystem partners, and others. So that's the biggest philosophical change from the time I have been in this role I've pushed for, is let's focus on what we know best. We understand annuities very well. We understand the pain points we have with annuities not fitting well into other platforms. Let's focus on those things. And let's not focus on building things for which you already have industry expertise. So that's been a big shift in strategy for us.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great strategy. Definitely. In the world of outsourcing, we're all in, right? It only makes sense.
And Oleg, outsourcing.
And Nick, can you tell us about Cambridge? What are the initiatives of how Cambridge sees managing external vendors and ability to adjust internal systems and adjust, kind of working with vendors to adjust their systems to make it more adaptable to changes in our
that one of the strategies that we've employed in the last 2 years has been to focus on the method of integration with some. Historically, we've done the hard integrations, the bound relationship type approaches for technology, and I needed something more flexible. Our constituency is of not a fixed technology, you will. They end up picking and choosing what they want to use. Either it can provide the whole stack, or they come to me with partial solutions they'd like to extend as their secret sauce. So I needed a flexible integration model, and I needed a method of control for access to those solutions. So we've done two things. I've changed the integration approach that my architects employ to allow for a variety of different integration methodologies, everything from classic old school integrations to more event-driven connections between us and our partners. And then I've also chosen good partners that do a lot of that heavy lifting for me, Invent being one of those. They're your solution and your approach for the generic nature of the data that you end up with allows for greater flexibility for me to extend in any partnerships I bring to this that you bridge for me. And I have, chosen that path because it allows me to make faster build versus buy decisions, and I get longer investment value out of the monies that I spend or the time that I obligate to bringing on a new solution. So that effort is been very successful for us in terms of speed to market. The other big investment that we've made, and I've done this from the moment an advisor logs in through ecosystem of offerings that I've collected, is we're investing, as you would imagine, with a non-fixed technology stack. I end up having to manage who sees what level of access and authority they have, and in what way do I make the data that's associated with those prevalent or suppressed depending upon authorization and role. And so persona management from the moment they log in through our contents, I've moved to an Adobe Experience Manager platform to give me that persona support. We're extending that into our partnerships. Your platform is very much prepared for that persona demand. And in my own end of creation, a lot of our solutions are rolling out the configurations of, what proposal generator you are authorized for versus what, solution for suitability you're using, or what method of program association that you have for commissions versus fees. I do that throughout the ecosystem of offerings I have as a method of configuration and control. And that investment is well underway, and it is the foundation for a lot of our decisions going into 2021 in terms of how we're going to accelerate the integration approaches we take with some of the partners. Our trends and analysis lead me to believe we'll need in 2021 to be competitive.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And, definitely enjoy working with your team. Some really experienced and smart engineers on your guys' team. And it's a pleasure working together. As we talk a little bit about kind of changes in the industry and in our regulatory environment, and possibly, with the election, there could be an impact on taxes and other regulations. What do you see how that might affect technology and how it's used by financial advisors? And I guess, Nick, if you can continue, maybe.
I'll go first on that one.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that we would see is a level of data management. In almost all cases, these scenarios that come up either through, the classic last minute regulation that's enforced upon us, or regulation through enforcement that requires us to go back in time. Every dollar I can spend on refined and historical detail of data history that I can control and manage is proving firm to defend ourselves, or to establish solutions that I could provide the advisors to better define the history that they're now being called to evaluate or to assess. The idea that summary information or activity that is in some bulk form of how you closed a book for, something 3 years ago is no longer going to carry the day. You've got to show full levels of detail for activities. You've got to show how your compensation and funding and programs played out over time. And so I'm finding investments in the details of both historical data, levels of transactional information, are proving more and more useful to me in preparing for those eventualities of everything from tax to regulation.
That's great. That's a very important. And Ed, how are you guys doing that at the advisor group?
Yeah, I think, quite candidly, obviously the Senate hasn't been decided yet. So it's a little bit hard to look at the crystal ball and see what's going to happen. But with that said, if things do go the way that they're trending, there's certainly going to be the possibility of obviously increased regulation, rollback, as well as some rollbacks of some of the regulations that were rolled back, as well as, of course, the potential of higher taxes. I would just say that all of these things, they put a great deal of pressure, on all firms, small and large, to make sure that they're able to maintain their margins and still serve their clients in the way that they need to. So from my perspective, one of the areas, or maybe the key area, and I do agree with Nick in terms of data, that's absolutely paramount. And it's an area where a number of, where almost any company can garner a great deal of value. And we certainly have made a lot of those investments and continue to. But I have to go back to the most important thing, which is all about efficiency, advisor efficiency, between the advisor and their clients. My company's efficiency, right? So, and all of that has to do with, at least from our perspective, our digital platform Equipped. And that is that if an advisor can open an account for a client in 5 minutes with absolutely no NIGO and straight through processing, that is night and day from where we were just a year ago or so. And as those adoption rates continue to go up, in fact, they've actually pretty much skyrocketed as a result of COVID. Now all of a sudden you can have a firm of 5 do as much as a firm of what needed to have 20 people, pushing paper and updating systems and things of that nature. And again, and for a company like Advisor Group, now all of a sudden I can have a smaller group of operations folks or service people, because we've implemented automation, we've implemented self-service capabilities, we've implemented, again, straight through processing that allow our teams to focus on doing the most important thing, which is, of course, taking care of and servicing our advisors and taking care of their needs.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, a lot of work has been put in, and pretty amazing things you can do if you really put your mind to it, right?
Exactly.
Dev, how does your business impact it? And with, I would imagine, so coming from kind of an annuity insurance side and working with wealth management. What do you guys see as an impact for your business?
I would say the biggest thing for us is that advisor experience mostly, and also the consumer experience. So what I mean by that is, traditionally speaking, insurance products had what I call a swivel chair experience. You went to a distribution partner's platform, everything else they could do in one place. And then for that annuity or that insurance product, they had to do a swivel chair, either do paper or have some disjointed process. Even in simple things like financial planning, these products were not showing up. The solutions did not show well. Simple things like beneficiary change required a paper application, was not done from the distribution partners platform. So the experience has been a huge challenge for insurance in general. So one of our biggest focus is to change that experience and meet the advisors where they are. So we are putting significant investments into integrating with platforms. I touched upon that, whether it's platforms like InvestNet or having partnerships with financial planning providers like MoneyGuide Pro or eMoney. So those investments are happening. On top of that, we are also changing the experience on our own Jackson platforms, not just on our website. We want the same digital experience when an advisor calls into our call center, all the way to our website, to the chatbot, to everything they interact with us on. So for us, the biggest focus is meeting the advisors where they are, meeting the consumers where they are, and having the experience of that annuity very similar to the experience they get with other financial services product. So that's our biggest focus.
That's great. That's it's a lot of work, and connecting with all these different systems. I'm sure trying to integrate, and it's an exciting project to take on. So speaking of exciting projects, and we're coming just a few weeks to the end of Crazy 2020, and I wanted to see if maybe I'll go around the panelists and ask a question: is what is your number one New Year's resolution for the 2021? Def, we'll start with you since we're...
Absolutely. My number one New Year resolution for 2021 is the same which I had in 2020. Try to make more time for the balcony versus the dance floor. And what I say is, as operators, we are always in the execution, trying to manage million things at a time. We all need to create that time for us where we can have our thinking time, where we have meeting times on our calendars where there are no meetings, and we are truly having that opportunity to think and have more meaningful strategy defined. And that's becoming tougher and tougher in today's world, right? The world of context switching is so much on us that continues to be a goal for me. I'll say I'm a work in progress on that, but that's something I want to continue to focus on in 2021.
That's a great analogy, I guess. Spending more time on the balcony. that's pretty cool. Ed, what are your number one resolution for New Year?
Well, it's certainly, just to be honest here with all my new friends, is more Peloton time. I would say that's got to be the first one. So if I make it past that, no, all kidding aside, actually, what Dev said actually resonated quite a bit with me. It's very, very similar to the conversations that we've been having internally. Let me just go back to the fact that, we are pretty much still an upstart, right? So a company that's only 4 years old, at least after being divested. What has to happen is remember the old saying, what got you here won't get you there, right? And Oleg, you made the point that we've experienced very, very rapid growth, inorganic as well as organic growth. As you're going 1,000 miles an hour and you're executing like crazy, you also have to make sure that you're putting in place, the right processes, the right standards to make sure you don't trip over yourself. But at the same time, you have to stay very, very nimble and continue to have, the flexibility and the agility to go and change and move much faster than, of course, some of your bigger competitors. And so I would say, again, very similar to Dev, is that I think we have to constantly look at our culture, at the processes that we put in place, and making sure that we are as efficient as humanly possible, But at the same time, also making sure that we do allow our leaders time for strategic thought. That is something that can get lost when you're executing, again, at 120%. And obviously it's critical, that you continue to meet, or even overachieve your objectives. But, without that strategic thinking time, I think it ends up being detrimental in the long term. So.
That's great. That's great advice, and definitely something that we should all consider for the new year. Nick, what are your top priority items for 2021, or item?
I mean, I agree with making time for strategy and learning in general. We got to keep all of the assets we have as staff sharp as we can. And, now with COVID and not being able to go to training and getting together for sessions offsite and things like that, it becomes a challenge. But the thing that we're really putting energy to and we're planning around is getting my development and product staff closer to and more in context with what the advisors on them. We see the changes in their business approach, learning what the usage is of the tools and solutions that we're creating and evolving as a shift in focus or demand is really valuable to my architects and my product leaders and my rank and file engineers, where I've got and there's a variety of different committees we have. We're kind of putting new demands on them, and my goals that I've expressed with Amy is to get my developers in a situation of awareness or exposure to those advisor realities of use. Get greater exposure to the advisor workspace and work patterns to my rank and file developers if I can.
Sounds great. So that's definitely an important factor. I remember back when my previous company, Finance Logics, we tried to solve the same problem. We created a conference where we would bring developers and our clients in one room and let them actually talk to each other. Imagine taking your developers to your clients. So you guys might want to try that. That worked out pretty nice for us with the previous companies. So great ideas, great conversation today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time this morning to speak to us, to each other, and share your thoughts and your ideas for the new year. And again, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. Any last thoughts or last comments you'd like to say as we wrapping this up?
Well, I'll go first and hope all of us, stay safe and healthy and continue to help our companies thrive in these changing times. But I would think as we look at lots of changes ahead, and I think this is where, as we've seen the conversation, it's our opportunity to shine. So it's where we get to show the use of technology to facilitate good business. And I think our creativity is probably at a precipice of new opportunity with companies like yours, and in what we're doing with a lot of the new vendor directions that are out there today for better and more.
No, I actually would echo many of the things that you were saying, even the ones that even the thoughts that I made up when you froze. So no, all kidding aside, I think, look, I think, going through COVID, I think the world has changed in a way that it'll never go back to kind of the old way of doing things. And I think, I think what actually, again, resonated with me during today's discussion is, we're all in that same place where, we're all having to play that role of being excellent integrators, right? Of having to build, strong foundations, building out abstraction layers and APIs so we can interact deeply with, with third parties. There's a heck of a lot more buying than building, but at the same time, we all still need to have our own secret sauce. So more and more, I think CTOs and CIOs are are needing to be excellent tap dancers at being able to do a lot of things and a lot of things very, very well. And again, I think it all goes back to the people that you hire and making sure that you have a clear vision, a clear purpose, and a strategy that is inspiring that people can really wrap themselves around.
Great, thanks, Ed. And Dev, any last words?
Absolutely. In fact, I'll go to Ed's Peloton example. That's one of my goals as well, Ed, on the personal side, is to get more on my Peloton. But the reason we all bring our Pelotons up is because of the experience we get from it, right? There is a certain amount of money we pay for that experience in addition to the bike and that iPad over there. I hope someday our firms can be considered in that fashion when it comes to experiences we provide, right? Financial services has a long way to go there from a pure experience standpoint to an advisors and our customers. So that's my biggest passion, will continue to always be my biggest passion, is how can we reach that level of experience which you get from your Peloton, which we get from your Amazon.com and things like that, and how can we compete in that space? So I'll leave us with that.
That's great. That's great. So it sounds like we got to spend more time on the balcony, yet still need to be able to tap dance and listen to our customer. I think those are the three thoughts that I kind of picked up from your guys' advice. And I'd like to thank everyone for participating on the panel today. This was a really exciting discussion, and I learned a lot actually myself today. I hope our listeners have learned a lot as well. And thank you so much. And we'll see you soon, and hopefully when we have conferences reopen and we'll be able to do it live.
Thank you, Oleg.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.